In the journey of team dynamics, we often encounter invisible barriers that hinder our collective potential. Think about teams you've been a part of in the past. Within those teams, you might have experienced mistrust, conflict avoidance, lack of commitment, lack of accountability, or neglect. These negative dynamics are unfortunately quite common and are examples of teams that lack psychological safety. In fact, you've probably seen these dysfunctions tear apart your groups in the past. It's easy to overlook these dysfunctions, especially if you're not aware of them in the first place. So before we can discuss how to create a safe environment, let's first define what psychological safety is. Psychological safety is the assurance that one can speak up with ideas, questions, and concerns. It's the ability to take risks and admit mistakes freely within your team. Best stated by Edmondson, it's a felt permission for candor. It's the soil in which engagement, creativity, and resilience take root, allowing teams not just to function, but to flourish. Now that we've defined what psychological safety is, let's discuss why it's important to implement this into the teams you have now and going into the future. If we look back at one of the dysfunctions mentioned earlier, conflict avoidance, we can see that this is an example of how a team can fall apart because they don't have the freedom to voice concerns. A psychologically safe team has the tools to address these conflicts head on rather than letting it fester over time. So let's explore how we can nurture this environment where every voice is not just heard, but is fundamental to a team's collective success, and think about the steps we can take to ensure every team member feels a sense of trust. First, you should make it clear why a team member's voices matter. This is especially important when taking on a leadership role. It reminds everyone in your group that you're not just thinking about yourself, but focused on the team's growth as a whole. Setting up a rationalized argument around this concept is important for the same reason that we even define psychological safety in the first place. Someone who's inclined to dominate the discussion needs to know why they should focus on letting others speak up. It's also important to be able to admit your own fallibility to your team. In doing so, you create a model of behavior you would like to see in others, and it creates a good foundation for what you expect from each other. Another skill you should focus on developing is actively inviting input. You can do this by explicitly asking for input from every member of your team. This is an incredibly important thing to do within your groups because not everyone is willing to speak up. An effective way to do this is by asking open-ended questions such as, "What are you seeing? What are your thoughts on this?" Or, "Where do you stand on this idea?" These questions help members not feel targeted, but instead invited to express their opinions. This goes in tandem with the skill of actively listening. When inviting others' input, you need to be willing to actually listen to them. There's a difference between listening to someone and actively engaging with what they're saying. A great way to check that you're actively listening is to have follow-up questions in mind when a person is finished speaking. This demonstrates to the other person that you've genuinely thought about what they have to say and develops trust with them. You can also give visible cues that you're listening, like nodding or giving eye contact during a conversation. Now we want to talk to you about ways you can respond productively. How you respond to someone's input is more important than you might think. When a group member's ideas are strange or the feedback they're giving is surprising, it's important to be forward-thinking in your approach. Especially when it comes to individual ideas, if you respond with negativity, it can often put up people's defenses, making them less likely to share thoughts in the future. Instead, you should seek to learn more about their perspective and break it down with them so it feels more like a collaborative effort rather than an interrogation. Finally, we want to talk to you about a few misconceptions people might have when it comes to psychological safety. It's not all about being, quote, nice. This is an easy conclusion to come to, but it doesn't capture the whole picture. By solely focusing on being nice, a group can fall into a false sense of safety. Rather than addressing the problems that might arise, everyone acts on the surface as if nothing's wrong. This is incredibly damaging as it can result in a lot of the dysfunctions mentioned. When you have a group like this, it's hard for people to express points of conflict because you've created an environment where everyone thinks that they're just trying to be nice, and it has an incredibly fragile framework in which just bringing in one point of conflict can break the whole thing apart, or it can at least appear that way. But if you don't address this, these negative emotions will grow over time and ultimately at some point pop up and mess with your team's cohesion. On the other hand, being brutally honest, as some would put it, can sometimes be an excuse to be mean. So you're going to need to strike a delicate balance between the two, and only through practice can you truly learn how to create a psychologically safe environment. We encourage you to explore how you can use these tools with your teams and learn more so that you can all develop these skills over time. With all of that being said, we hope you can come away from this lesson thinking about new ways you can contribute to your group's trust and safety in the future. Thanks for watching.